All right, so let's talk a little bit about the overall format of the exam and what to expect. So the exam covers everything that we've covered so far, from the first day of class to the video lectures that were recorded last week due to snow. So any of the material posted on Blackboard is fair game. So as you know, that is quite a lot of material, and so for me to really adequately cover various aspects from everything that we've talked about, I'm going to try to keep your writing to a minimum. So you'll see a lot of true-false questions, a lot of multiple choice questions, and a few fill-in-the-blank questions, and very few short answer questions. The short answer questions being reserved for those questions where I really want you to be able to produce a written interpretation of some particular number, like the slope of a simple linear regression. So one thing about the short answers is that the short answers really are intended to be short, so I will give you the allotted amount of space that I think it should take to complete that answer. So if you find yourself writing more than a sentence or two, you're probably not helping yourself. So the answer should be succinct and fit into the space with not super teeny tiny handwriting, just normal writing should suffice. So if you've looked at the exam from last semester up on Blackboard, you'll see that it contained many pages, and this year's exam is also going to be many pages. In fact, it is the same length and the same format. So there'll be a few major problems with a lot of different subparts, like what you've seen on the homework and in-class activity. So do expect to spend the entire 1.25 hours on the exam. Some of you may finish early, but a lot of you guys will fill up the time allotted. One thing to make sure to bring with you is a calculator. And that calculator has to be a freestanding calculator. It can't be attached to your phone. No phones are going to be allowed. It can't be on your laptop. No laptops are allowed either. So bring in some sort of calculator that can do fancy computations like taking square roots, taking the logarithm of a number, raising a number to some arbitrary power, etc. You're not going to be able to borrow anyone else's in class, so make sure you have brought your own. Finally, there's no specific use of equations, so you don't need to worry about memorizing them or writing it down, but you may be asked to talk about the implications of an equation. So one thing we've talked about is that the standard error of predicted values gets larger the farther away that you predict from the average value of x in the data. All right, so you're not going to be using your laptops for the exam. That's going to be for the take-home component. I will give you, on the exam itself, any R output that you would need, and you will just be interpreting the R output. In addition, you are allowed to bring in one page of notes, front and back with you. So as long as that paper is a standard size, that's totally fine. You can write stuff by hand, you can print stuff out, you can do a mix, however you want to make it is totally fine. And kind of a humorous example, in previous year, back when I had PowerPoints, this was someone's front page to their page of notes. I don't see how they actually found anything at all in it. They ended up doing fine in the class, but you can have complete freedom over how you want to construct those notes there. But it's best if you can find the stuff easily. Like I said, the exam is fairly long, so you're not going to have time to browse through all of the notes that you've written. You're going to want to know where that stuff is. And also, you'll be turning in your sheet of notes with your exam. So before coming in, go ahead and put your name on it so that we have that ready to go. All right, so what's the best strategy for studying for this exam? Well, in my opinion, for the most part, the exam questions look a lot like questions on activity in the homework. So my first suggestion is to go through the activities in the homework and make sure that you can reproduce the answers to all the things that are being asked. So imagine you have the R output in front of you. Can you answer the questions that you've previously been responsible for answering? So reviewing the book and reviewing the notes is good for filling in the missing pieces, but there's a lot of pages in the book. There's hundreds of pages of notes. That's kind of an overwhelming amount of material. Use the book and the notes to fill in those missing pieces where you aren't quite clear what's going on on the activities and the homework. That'll get you the vast majority of the way there to being able to answer the questions on the exam. All right, one thing about the slides, however, is that slides that have boxed information, well, those boxed information bits are typically pretty important. So you might want to make sure to pay very special attention to that. One thing about last semester's exam up on Blackboard is that it is useful to look it over. However, this year's exam looks really quite a bit different. So not only did we cover slightly different things last semester, I didn't cover multiple regression before the midterm, but also the R output looks a little bit different, so there's a little bit of a mismatch there. And as I do for all my exams, I don't simply go through, say, last semester's exam and just change data sets and ask the exact same questions. This is really a new exam. You'll see a lot of different types of questions, actually. All right, in addition to the in-class exam that you guys will have Wednesday or Thursday, there's going to be a take-home exam, which will be posted Thursday at noon, and that is going to test your proficiency with R, since a big component of this class is actually training you to use this software, since it's so sought after and valuable with businesses. And so you'll just be running R command and reporting a particular number that comes out from the output. So each exam is unique and dynamically generated. No two people are going to have the exact same answers, so you'll definitely be on your own for this. So it'll be due Sunday at midnight, and it'll be very important for you to follow the directions extremely closely. There's no partial credits on the take-home. There is on the in-class version. But it's possible to really mess up the exam and to lose a lot of points if, for example, you, say, mix up the roles of X and Y. So more on that later, but follow those directions closely on the take-home. One thing I do want to talk about right now is that on the take-home, there is no collaboration involved. The only contact you may have with another person is me. You may email me for clarifications on what I meant about the particular question, but you won't be asking, hey, how do I run this command? It's giving me an error. I can't get it to work. You're responsible for knowing all of these commands by now, and so I do expect you to be able to run them, but you can ask me like, hey, what did you actually mean here? Sometimes I'm not the most clear. So don't email the TAs. They're not going to help they're not going to help you guys. Do not discuss the exam with anyone in the class, in the other section, anyone else at UT, anyone that you know. Do not even talk about the exam until after the due date. And that includes really benign questions like, hey, what did you think of the exam? Just don't say anything. Or even more insidious questions like, hey, what slide helped you out with question number 2? I want this to be completely your own work. And this includes also soliciting online help. So if you use message boards or apps like Study Room, don't be posting questions, don't be asking for help. That is illegal collaboration. And if that happens, well, I'm going to have to pursue that stuff with the college, and that's not fun. Okay, so before talking about the stuff on the exam, I'm going to break it off right here and have that be continued in another bit.